Hello, I want to talk about a government that cannot manage simple solutions to ABC, aid, Brexit and Covid. My name's Mike Cashman. If you find this video useful, please subscribe to the channel. So I've commented on some of these things before, but I noticed a pattern lately in the government's actions. Let's take the latest debate over aid, whether it should be 0.5% or 0.7% of GDP. Now, there's a very obvious way out of the mess for this government, the mess and the rebellion of Conservative MPs that they've got themselves into. Very obvious thing that they could do, which is to announce now that the aid cut will be restored in 2022. They can save face. They can say, we always said it was going to be a temporary cut. Yes, we can see that the finances allow that to happen. And, you can't tell me that they can say, well, yes, we can afford 400 billion, but we couldn't possibly afford 404 billion. That's just not credible. So there's a way out for them which avoids a confrontation with their own MPs and a lot of discontent from those who believe that we should be fulfilling our legal commitment, our legal promise that we made, but the government don't take it. And they do seem incapable of taking the middle ground. So I'm going to quote these three issues, A, B and C, aid, Brexit and Covid, where there is in each case a solution which is simple. It isn't always simple to implement, but in the case of aid, it would be simple to implement. That's an easy way out. So for Brexit, that middle way, which they're not taking, is to resolve all the problems of travel across the European Union, of working elsewhere, of settlement, of food and so on, by rejoining the single market and the customs union. Now, I know I've said that will probably take a change of Prime Minister. I know there are plenty that will say, well, that's not the hard Brexit that some of the people who supported Brexit wanted. That's true, but there are plenty who would have been happy with that. But what the hard Brexiters have got doesn't work, and they don't have a solution for it. And one of the major arguments against staying in the single market from some of the Brexiters was they said, well, we need to control our borders. Well, we've seen that when it really mattered, this government hasn't controlled the borders and has allowed in the B1617.2 variant, the Delta variant as it's now being called. But perhaps more to the point, if the concern was the number of EU citizens that were in the UK, loads of them have left. We've seen the effect of shortages of staff in a range of industries, from hospitality to food to the NHS. So after that 5-year reset, then surely that doesn't really matter so much anymore. So that is the solution, which is simple. You can define it easily, rejoin the single market and the customs union. I do appreciate that would be more significant to implement. But we can see what it is that would solve the problem. On COVID, and I just want to talk about the COVID inquiry, there is this argument where Boris Johnson says, yes, I know there's all these arguments for an inquiry, but some of the doctors might be busy in working on a third wave this winter, and so we can't start the public inquiry now. Well, that's an interesting admission, but there is a simple solution. When you set up a public inquiry, it takes time to appoint the chair and the other panel members to agree terms of reference. You're going to have one stream or two parallel streams or more. You need to get your facilities, sort out your arrangements. All of that takes time. All of that could be happening in the second half of 2021. And by the way, when you've done that, you tend to look at written evidence first before you get to oral evidence. So the inquiry could start now with those things happening without any need to take oral evidence until 2022. that would fulfil Boris Johnson's objections, and everybody who is calling for a public inquiry, the criticism would go away because they could see that things have started. But the government won't do that. Why not? Why do they come up with a fake excuse? Well, maybe they don't really want to start in 2022. Maybe they're proposing to kick the can further down the road. But we do have a government that will not go for the sometimes the statesman-like thing to do, as in these cases, is to go for the compromise option. Not always, but one of the things, of course, that you need is different views in Cabinet ready to argue this out. The Sunday Times had an article which said there's a big argument between Grant Shapps, the Transport Minister, and other members of the Cabinet, as if this was a tremendous revelation of unrest in the Cabinet. It doesn't worry me that they have an argument about that. I think the Cabinet should have more arguments, but it needs people with a degree of rigour, courage, intellectual stature. And I'm not saying that the current, that the members of that particular argument were, but you need that battle of minds in the Cabinet. You need all wings of the governing party represented, rather than just appointing your yes men of, frankly, lesser competence, which is what we have in the current Cabinet. So, simple solutions for the government. They are not taking them, but on aid, Brexit and Covid inquiry, there is something that they could do that would be much more straightforward. So, if you feel that's a useful insight, please subscribe to the channel. Britannia waives the rules. Thank you.